This week, I'm extremely thankful for seasons. Yes, I did say seasons as in weather, not seasonings, although I'm very thankful for seasonings. But earlier this week, I was thinking of how much seasons have meant to me throughout my life and how much they still mean to me. You know, as a kid, you have a completely different perspective on life, and when summer came, it was 3 months off of school. As an adult, it became 6 pay periods. But I was trying to think of what are some of the other things that were greatly impacted by seasons in my life growing up, and I thought of a few of them. The first one was TV. I can certainly be saying this as a product of my generation, but I did watch a lot of TV when I was little. Not so much as an adult, but did watch plenty of TV as a child. But I was comparing today's TV shows and characters to those of yesteryear, and I have a theory. Hear me out for a second. I would say that some of the most memorable TV shows and or characters are those from decades ago. And I would further say, and this is a whole conversation for another week, but the characters that most of society might remember are those who performed in front of a live audience. That's a whole conversation about energy, which I think performers and athletes can certainly attest to, given the absence of crowds during the pandemic. When TV shows were number one on a weekly, and number two, they actually were on for certain seasons out of the year. You know, summer was just for reruns and being outside playing. I think those shows and characters had a greater impact on society. Now, I'm not saying that TV shows today aren't good. There's plenty of great shows and movies, and places like Netflix and Hulu and plenty of other platforms are putting out quality content. Not saying that at all. But I think there's a huge difference when you binge watch something versus welcoming a character or a cast into your home every single week. You know, back then, rather than just filming everything all at one time, shows, especially shows that were of its time and talking about issues of its time, it was far different because the characters had an opportunity to change with the times. They were there setting trends for viewers to talk about, or they were covering subject matter that viewers were talking about. And I think with that, they became much more relatable. And watching it week after week, number one, there was anticipation, what was going to happen next week. And gosh, at the end of the season, what was going to happen? What was going to happen after the summer and when it finally returned in the fall? These were shows, episodes, characters that you were talking about with your family, with your friends, talking about around the water cooler at work. It just became integrated within our lives. And TV shows and movies certainly have a great deal of impact on society. I think that's been proven time and time again. But I think how it's delivered and when it's delivered impact the impact that it ends up having. Another way that seasons have meant a lot to me in my life is, and I think for many kids, is sports. You know, we used to have seasonal sports, and to some degree we still do. But I'm talking about children having the opportunity to play sports and play multiple sports. Here's another thing that I have an opinion on, and we can have this conversation or debate another day. I think kids should be playing a lot more sports than they do. I think far too early. Right now, and this is having coached baseball, seeing many kids, whether it's grammar school and especially in high school, having to choose a sport. Worse than that, having to choose a certain position that they want to play. Having to choose a sport to play and commit to really limits them. I know there's been studies done of how beneficial it can be for children to play multiple sports and seasonal sports, because not every sport works the same parts of your body or in the same ways. But kids just had an opportunity to get out there and play different sports throughout the year. And when it came to playing within the community and for schools, although I'm sure some coaches wanted to do a lot of projection even back then, trying to relive the glory days through their kids or through the players that they coached, I think that's something that weighs on kids far too heavily these days. And I'm talking primarily about my own experience with baseball and trying to get 8 and 9-year-old kids to play the real rules of baseball because they're going to have to learn them eventually. Let kids play. Let kids play and have fun. Let your lefties get out there and play positions that they're not going to be able to should they continue playing into high school and especially college and beyond. What else gets impacted greatly by the seasons? I would have to say produce. You know, years back you couldn't actually find all of the produce that you find now in the stores because when things grew a little bit more naturally, they weren't always available. Some things were better harvested in the spring, summer, and the fall, and sometimes even winter, depending where they were being grown. But nowadays we expect Mother Nature to be like, Grubhub or DoorDash and give us whatever we want whenever we want. I just don't think that's right. As much as I appreciate science, there's some things I think are better left alone. So those are just a few ways that I think seasons have impacted me and I know society overall. I'm not going to sit here and shake my fist and say the good old days, but you know what? there were some things that were better in the good old days. And believe me, I'll be the first to admit that as a society and as a species, we have not been perfect. We have had many, many flaws and screwed up many things. But I believe and I feel that there's been so much overcorrection that rather than taking what was wrong and fixing it, we ended up turning the world upside down and just going in a completely opposite direction. Basically, forcing evolution. If Darwin could see us now. As a result of that overcorrection, I feel that we've dismantled families, conversation, the economy, communities, and sometimes, some days, our society as a whole. Is everything today so bad? No. But I really do hope that decades from now, we don't look back and say that these were the good old days, because we got some work to do. Hopefully my kids and grandkids can say decades from now that we are living in the good times. Thinking about this piece, there were a few words that kept on floating in my head, and they were commitment, communication, and community. And then I was thinking, I'm not actually sure what the prefix com means. So guess what? I looked it up. It means with, or together, or in association. And I was thinking that it's always been the goal of each generation to make life better for the next. I think the last few generations have been focusing more on me versus we. But one of the ways that we've failed is by trying to make life easier. And easier doesn't mean better. At least it doesn't always mean better. But I think when you try and take the easy route, eventually you stumble and get into trouble. But better is what we should be focusing on. So let's get our act together. Talking to all the human beings out there. Let's commit to having better communication within our communities. So today, tomorrow, and each day thereafter, let's be better to ourselves and to each other. So that's what I'm thankful for this week. What are you thankful for? What are your thoughts on what I'm talking about today? Am I crazy or am I making sense? Feel free to leave a comment below or send me a message. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next week.